Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to wait for people to slowly come in, but I just want to make sure that you are all in the right place. This is a Reuters Events Supply Chain Europe 2024 webinar. We're going to be discussing Innovate or Stagnate, digitally transforming supply chains for success. My name is Maria Villablanca. I'm going to be your host today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Future Insights Network, which is a network of over 130,000 senior supply chain leaders. I'm the host of the Transform Talks podcast, as well as a lot of video series on transformation. And I spend my day talking to leaders in supply chain around transformation. So I am very excited to be here on this all-women panel this morning, talking to you all about digital transformation. I'm going to do a brief introduction. Actually, I'm going to ask everyone to do a brief introduction, and then we're going to kick off. But before we do that, I just want to say that we're going to do things a little bit differently today, in that I'm not going to wait till the end to ask everybody questions from the audience. There's a Q&A feature in your screen that you're looking at right now, and you can ask questions as and when we go, and I will read through them and I will ask questions to our panelists along with the questions that I've got. So please feel free to be an active participant when we have this fantastic panel of women who are here to discuss digital transformation. So let's get started. Maria Pia, you and I go way back. We've known each other a long time. So why don't I start with you? Give us an introduction.
So, Maria Pia De Caro, I typically say about myself that I'm an engineer. Started many years ago in the prehistory of times, 30 years ago in FMCGs. I had the pleasure of developing competence across different areas of operations, from manufacturing, engineering, digital supply chain, etc. I now have the pleasure of running the end-to-end operations for Pernod Ricard, which is a leading 12 billion euro company in the spirits industry that is very much into the digital transformation as well. And we are generally convinced that or we transform or we stagnate.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Sarah.
Hi, my name's Sarah Ricketts and I work for Rolls-Royce. So I have 20 years plus in procurement through various companies ranging from retail to engineering, direct, indirect, etc. I've been at Rolls-Royce for about 11 years now and have done various procurement roles, but my current role is to lead on transformation of the function, the procurement function, including supply chain, and to transform us to world class. So this is something that I feel really passionate about today.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Gundel.
Thank you, Maria. My name is Gundel Herzog. I'm working for Armor Sports. We have great brands in our portfolio like Wilson, Atomic, Salomon, and Arc'teryx. And my role is to lead supply chain management, where we now started to create a new function, which is called digital transformation, where we focus mainly on supply chain, where we see and learned out of the past that supply chain is a very important pillar for growth. And therefore, without going into a digital transformation, we know we will not be competitive. We know we will not have the transparency to take the right decisions. Therefore, I'm super excited to be part of that discussion today and get some insights on how others work, and will provide some insights on how we work.
Thanks so much. Archana.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me here. So I'm Archana Ravi. I work with Era Technology, which is a global provider for AI-powered decision intelligence. And in my current role, I lead Era's UK growth and value engineering practice. So I have over 17 years of experience, a lot of diverse roles across both industry as well as consulting. And today, in my current role, I'm a very strong, passionate evangelist for decision intelligence, and really the way you can apply decision intelligence across supply chain operations. And I work with customers across CPG, pharma space, really helping them and partnering them on their decision automation journey. So I'm really excited to be here and to be able to, of course, glean from all of your insights and also share some of my insights.
Thank you so much, Archana. Okay, so, I took from each of your introductions the words passionate, the fact that transformation, you must transform or stagnate, so there's a lot of feeling around transformation. And I want to talk about why we're here today, why you all agreed to do this with us, with Reuters Events, to discuss transformation. So I want to start with you, Sarah. Why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I'm on a bit of a journey myself with this whole transformation piece, actually. I have come from leading a big team in Rolls-Royce where through COVID, through the pandemic, through the geopolitical risk that we've seen, we've gone through a really turbulent time with our supply chain. And I would say we're still in it, still very volatile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. So I felt that the journey I've personally been on, I've been in roles where we haven't had enough people to do the work we want to do. And I've been the person constantly saying, give me more buyers. I just need more buyers to make this work. And what I'm realizing in my transformation role is it's not about people. People are, it's hard to find the right people. It's hard to keep them. It's hard to retain talent. And it takes time to onboard people. What we really need is some really great digital tools. We need to be making use of AI and Gen AI because that's how we make things efficient. That's how we keep our people. And I'm really learning that through the transformation role that I'm doing. So I feel like coming from a role where I led a big team and just wanted more people to do the work, I'm really coming through now to seeing that's not the answer. The answer is digital tools and AI. And that's what I need to drive into Rolls-Royce to really make the difference. So that's why I feel personally so passionate, because I'm on the journey myself and I'm learning so much all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. Gundel.
Yeah, I just listened to Sarah, and once I knocked my head because I said, "Oh, it's about people. It's not about tools," which I think is interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
For me, I'm really excited to change the way of working of people today, because today they are doing a lot of data crunching. Tomorrow, I want them to be smart, use their human intelligence to then have, together with artificial intelligence and human intelligence, the right decision intelligence. That's my kind of far vision. But I also see the human in there, and that makes me also excited to go this journey along, because it's a lot about change management, and that's also one of my favorite topics. Make a change, include people, and include the tools and the technologies. Therefore, it's the right mix. And as I'm personally a continuous learner, that's now a field where I have an endless journey in front of me to learn, but also to bring then my learnings into the company. Therefore, that makes me excited. And I'm a very big enthusiast in talking. Therefore, I will make everybody excited in the company. That's my goal.
I love it. Yes. Maria Pia.
I think we talked already with Sarah and Gund a couple of important elements. We talked about people and we talked about technology. I think that there is the famous third element that I like to mention, and maybe make a broader reflection. The third element that I like to mention is process. So there is a famous triangle: people, process, and technology. You need to have the three aligned to be able to drive a transformation. Now, on the same theme, if I might take 1 or 2 minutes more, is that I will actually be speaking to PhDs in supply chain tomorrow, and I wanted to explain the why of transformation. And the way I wanted to explain it is in a few steps. And the first one starts, like Simon Sinek would say, with the why. I think it is very important to drive digital transformations, or to augment the potential of the humans that are in our amazing companies, that we understand why we need to take decisions and what decisions we need to actually improve. And once we have done that, then the path becomes simple. But we need to be very clear on what are the business benefits that we are driving and what are the decisions that drive these business benefits. The rest is relatively simple. Actually, the part of AI, sorry, Archana, you might disagree with me. Happy to hear your thoughts. It's that the part of building the data set, cleaning the data set, teaching the data set, building the predictive model. To some extent, you give it to the very smart people, they will find a way. And then it becomes difficult again. Because like Gundel was saying, it's all about the humans. It's about augmenting the potential of the humans. But not every human has an analytic capability, analytic ability potential. So that is where the process part becomes important in my mind. That's why I wanted to stress it. Because as you go into process, you actually determine what is the operating model that you want to implement, whether you want to distribute the intelligence that you create with the digital transformation, whether you want to concentrate it in digital hubs, and then make the insights, so the ability to take the decisions that we determine as important, available to the right people at the right time in the business, which might be different profiles than the people that are actually data mining and taking the decisions. Once you have done that, then it's a history of integration, monitoring, PDCA, plan, do, check, act, then the process, restart and continue.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what you triggered by talking people and technology and augmenting human.
I agree. I agree completely. Archana, do you want to answer a little bit about your passions first? And then I want to revisit the whole people, process, technology side of things.
Absolutely. So a couple of reflections, really. So I think for me, supply chain transformation really eventually comes down to the human capital who are running these supply chains. How motivated are they? How engaged are they? And I think the business outcomes follow. So I remember when I started my career, we used to talk about data in terms of KB. It became MBs, it became gigabytes. Now we talk about data in terms of petabytes. I even heard yottabytes recently, right? The sheer volume of data that we're really throwing at our users in supply chain, and the expectation in terms of the number of decisions they need to take, the complexity of decisions. Just imagine the pressure that we're putting them through, and then driving efficiencies, and then driving growth and acceleration. And to me, really being digital is going to be able to, one, empower them. But I think the more digitization we see, the more human we will be. So to me, I think it really, comes down to how do we drive digital to really empower our workforce. So that is one element of it. And to me, another element of it is, and this I think came about when I was working with Unilever. I worked on a couple of initiatives in the sustainability space, Maria. And I kind of like the idea of being able to leave a lasting legacy and an impact. And I could really see that supply chain transformation, I think, has a huge impact in terms of how we look at sustainability. So to me, I think these are the couple of things which, I'm really passionate about when it comes to supply chain transformation. Yeah.
A lot of really good answers here. A lot of very good answers. I want to focus on the people, process, technology for a second, because we hear a lot about transformations that fail. We hear a lot of the statistics, whatever you want to quote, whether it's 70%, 80% of transformations fail, and the failure rate is quite significant and, more importantly, quite lasting, right? I mean, a large organization of the ilk of that you all work at, a failure could be quite costly. So what do I think people get wrong about transformation? Is it a combination of not answering the why, to Maria Pia's point? Why am I transforming? Is it not understanding that this is beyond tech? It's tech, people, process. What, in your opinion, is the reason why a lot of companies have failed? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I'll start by saying that I actually think failure is fine. As long as you kind of fail fast and learn from it, failure is okay. And transformation is not an easy thing. It's not always clear what you need to do. So I expect that there's going to be some failure in there, and that's fine. I think for us at Rolls-Royce, one of the things that we need to focus more on is engaging the users. So you can have the best processes, you can have the best digital tools, but if it's not what the users want, if it doesn't improve their user experience, they're not going to get on board. And if you haven't got your big teams on board, it's never going to land right. So it's about engaging, it's about understanding what they need. And then it's about bringing them along on the journey with you and getting everybody excited about. And I think Gundel mentioned that earlier. It's about getting everybody excited to want to make this change, and that it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes some real kind of dedication, and it takes some people with some real passion to keep going. And that's probably one of the things I would say is you have to never give in. It means you will fail. You keep going and you don't stop until you've got to where you're trying to get to. But definitely bringing the people up with you is really important.
It's the balance, isn't it? I mean, there are a lot of mistakes that are made in trying to implement shiny new toys, new tech that sounds really exciting. And hey, I'm excited as much as the next guy for it. generative AI and for all these other things. But there's an underlying question first here, which is, what problem are we trying to solve? How is this going to add value to our customers, our employees, our partners, our suppliers, right? I mean, Maria Pia, you're nodding at this. I mean, is this a fundamental question that needs to be asked?
Yes, and I think it's making sure that the alignment to change is complete and it starts from the C-suite, because it's not unlikely the change starts as a desire to change, but the deep, profound implications of change are not fully understood. The deep implications on the way, as we were saying earlier, the processes are run, the people are trained, and the technology is built. Gund mentioned the change management process, the process of adoption of change. So yes, it's good to have people excited, but we know that in the theory of change, the first reaction of human beings to change is dismay, depression, anguish, and then only at a certain moment starts acceptance, experimentation, and then full adoption. One thing
Perfect.
that this is
no, go ahead. I was going to say perfect. I completely agreed with that.
No, it's okay. I've lost my train of thought. I'll take it later.
So, Gundul, let's go back to the change management piece for a second. This is something that Maria Pia said. It's something I think Sarah alluded to, which is how you get buy-in from the top down, as well as you can't just throw technology into your employees and say, hey, here it is, start using it if it doesn't make things easier. So what are the pieces in the change management part of things that you think are fundamental for digital transformation change?
I think the fundamental start, and that's what Maria already mentioned, is really the why. People have to understand, and what we did and are continuously doing is creating this burning platform. If people see where we are weak today, if we talk about their pain points, and if we create a vision on how this could improve, they become excited and ambassadors of the journey. If it's then about the how we will do it, because if they understand the why, then it's easier to get them on board for the how. And the how is the journey of creating use cases where they finally see for themselves a benefit in. And therefore, all of these, it's about little steps. It's not about this one big achievement. I was always a dreamer, and I said, we have to make everything. It's this kind of glorifying vision. But even I have had to understand that we have to make it in little slices, create proof of concepts where we then really convince and persuade the full community. Even if you have honest opponents, those normally in change management, you have to bring into your team, then they will the best ambassadors you ever have. Therefore, it's really a continuous work, talking with the right people, and even in the beginning, they are the hardest one to talk about. They will be your best friends in the end.
Yeah, yeah, completely. Archana, your thoughts on that?
So a couple of things. So I think one thing we can all agree on is, the environment, the technology landscape, it's quite disruptive. And I think today is the time not to just communicate, but to really over-communicate with your teams, right? About your strategy, about your roadmap, what are you intending to do? And finally, eventually it boils down to what's in it for me. So being able to translate that message, I think, to your users is going to be really important. I think the other thing is, if you really look at the mix of workforce in different organizations today, you have a mix between Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z.
Gen
so you
Z,
have
yeah.
Exactly. And you have like one set of users who are so comfortable toggling ERP screens, and you have another set of users who are comfortable using Gen AI and allowing machines to take decisions for them. How do you really get the buy-in from these different sets of users and get them on board? So I think, to me, that's, an area that we typically need to be focusing on when you look at change management. And the other element to me in all of this is, how do you really foster that whole element around being able to experiment fast and fail fast? So Sarah alluded to it as well. And while that is there in, it is there conceptually, how do you really bring that into an implementation framework to say that, how do you tactically then allow your teams to know that, yes, this is okay in terms of being able to experiment and fail fast, but this is a bigger investment, we got to think about it. So really putting those kind of guidelines around it as well, I think really helps in terms of being able to drive that change.
Thank you for that. I want to go, I know, Maria Pia, there's a comment here that someone's made, and I'd like you to answer that, Maria Pia. I think you wanted to answer that. There's a comment from a Charlie D that says, love the reference to what is the problem to solve as a build, and this is the problem and probably solution that will make a real business difference, often to make people's roles earlier. And you've all addressed that. Maria Pia, did you want to comment on that?
I love the principle. It's bringing people motivation to change. As we said, we are clear on what is in there for the C-suite. We are clear on what is in there for the customer or for the target stakeholder. And it also needs to be clear, to the point that Archana was making, what is in there for the user. Archana mentioned that she worked in Unilever before. And in Unilever, you remember, Lina Nair was very, very passionate about the future of work and the concept of learning, unlearning, and relearning. That is something I've taken with me. So as we go through the transformation, to make sure that I buy people motivation, it's an important element. I would say it's not the only element. The additional element is making sure the people accept that they need to change their habits. And not everyone is in for that. I mean, not everyone should do it or could do it or would want to do it. So it is important to understand how far we want to go in the journey of transformation, because the transformation will go on with us or without us. But I think it's accepting that we need to continue to learn, but that we need to unlearn first what we learned before, our old habits, our old muscle memories, and restart learning in the trajectory of change. So as we said, the why is important, the human element, the human buy-in, what is in there for me, and now the new technology or the new process, the new environment is going to allow me to contribute and be a better human overall, but also then what is my individual contribution to change, and the acknowledgement that we do not all need to make the journey. There are so many journeys. Everyone will find their place in the world and be a fulfilled human being.
Thank you for that. I want to also say, please keep the questions coming. By no means of the imagination do we all believe that that transformation is a finite thing, that we're all done. I interview people all the time, and there's no one that says, oh, I'm done and transformation was fantastic and I've moved on. Transformation is a journey, and I think it'd be interesting to hear from the panelists what stage within transformation they're all in, and what have they learned, and what advice they would have. Gundul, should I start with you?
Yeah, of course. When I think about where we are today, we are talking about digitalization since 10 years, but we have not done anything. And we tried once a statistical planning tool, but we failed because of missing change management. Now I think it's the right moment where the market is, from an AI perspective and from a technology perspective, really on a level where speed of implementation is a given, where we continuously also see further evolutions. And we are now really kicking off this function of digital transformation. We have defined use cases. We are really in the moment of getting our foot in to start persuading the crowd to then really scale up and start using the digital transformation. When I refer to the question I just read, what is the difference between a digital transformation and a different transformation? I would say the digitalization is a kind of unknown universe for a lot of people. If you talk about artificial intelligence, the word itself is expressing something what is higher than our brain is. And that's also our challenge, to bring it into people's mind and to convince and to build up trust. And this trust is something which is artificial, underlaid with artificial intelligence, and therefore it's it's a different thing than an organizational change. That would be my explanation to that question.
Very much agree with that. Go ahead, Maria Pia.
No, I was actually answering by typing.
Yeah, I saw that someone asked a question. Do you want to maybe so that to share?
I can share what I had what I had written. I've actually a slightly different view, Gundul, but it's because I'm a early adopter. I'm a technology freak, I guess is my engineering upbringing. I was using a Nikon 801 when I was 18. It was the first semi-professional digital analog camera at the time. And it was taking pictures. Today I use the digital equivalents. I have a few different brands. I use my iPhone. Sometimes I even use DALL-E, and I create pictures with AI. And I still find the picture is a picture. So in a way, the way my mind is wired is that transformation requires the process of learning and relearning. So I understand the peculiarities or the differences the digital has because it's a step into the unknown. But for me, it's no more unknown that Leonardo trying to devise a flying machine at the time that nobody knew how to fly and crashing regularly with these funny prototypes. But again, I guess that's the beauty of playing in the domain. We can, I think, enrich each other with the different nuances of how we signal.
It's the evolution. It's the evolution of the processes that we're going through right now. Like you said, you don't even think of some of the analog things that we did. I mean, I remember almost 30 years ago sitting in a yard with a clipboard checking off when trucks were coming in and manually doing that kind of process, and hopefully some of that has changed. I want to move on to something else. We've got a poll for everyone, so I can't do it, so I'm going to ask someone backstage to launch the polls that we've got for people, because we want to understand a little bit from our audience where people are in their transformation journeys, and we'll talk a little bit about that again shortly. So while you're there, answer the poll, and then I want to ask a question now with regards to a quote I saw from the CEO of Netflix. That was this week or something, that he was talking about AI. They did a big interview with him on the Times, and he said something about how AI isn't going to take your job. The people that do AI well are going to be the ones that take your job. So I want to speak to that, going back again to the people side of things, and going back to, I mean, look at Maria Pia using DALL-E to create pictures, I mean, how much are we supporting our teams, or how much are you supporting your teams to understand, A, that AI is not a threat, and B, that AI and digital transformation and technology actually could be something that you need to unlearn some past behaviors and learn some new ones. So maybe we talk a little bit about that. Sarah, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I fundamentally think that AI is here to enhance our jobs, and that's what we've got to get across to our teams, that we need to embrace it, that we need to work with it, and that we will deliver more, be more efficient, make better decisions. We will use our brains and our intelligence more. We will preempt more risks, and use our time to do these things rather than the data crunching and everything else that AI can do. So I fundamentally believe that it really will enhance what we do if we embrace it in the right way. And that's what we need our teams to really understand and get with us on that journey. Yes, I'm sure AI would take some jobs if you never changed. But if you change what you're doing and you're fundamentally transforming all the way and keeping up with it and keeping abreast of it and using it, then actually it's there to help us. That's my view.
Make better decisions and improve things.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to go to Archana now, because I know that that's what you all do with your decision intelligence platforms. It will change the way supply chain people work. Do you want to speak a little bit more to that, Archana?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really all about, emphasizing the messaging on how do you really move from an era of people making the decisions supported by machines to really machines making the decisions, right? But guided by people. So essentially what you're doing is you're augmenting the kind of capabilities that human users or business users really have in the decision-making process. And in all of this, there's one large element that we don't only talk about. What about the cost of unmade decisions today? What about the opportunities with respect to unmade decisions today? There are millions of decisions which don't get made in the supply chain simply because you don't have the time to get to it. Sarah was earlier talking about at the outset in terms of being able to get more buyers because there are so many decisions to really get through to. How do you really ensure that you're able to cover all of these decisions? And if I use a very simple supply chain analogy, right, I think historically we often use humans as the safety stock when it comes to managing disruptions in your supply chain. So you have a plan, your plan changes, and then you have an exception. You immediately have a human intervention that needs to happen. So it's your human safety stock that is actually coming in to take care of all of these fluctuations. And now if you look at it, we have a lot of challenges in terms of course, labor availability, but also the fact that how do you really now start to ensure that you are able to, one, capture all of this tribal knowledge, have all of that digitized, automated, so that your team is really able to focus on the real value-added activities. So I think these are the, kind of different elements that come to mind.
Thank you for that. Gundul?
Yeah, well, I'm just listening to Archana, and I've loved what she's saying. The only thing where I was a kind of stopping, breathing is that a machine takes the decision. I think we are not yet so far. You are much more advanced in what you're doing and in your experience. I think there are a lot of companies who are just in the beginning of the journey, where we are in the on the level of starting to convince people to trust AI, and then use AI to take their decision, that it's still a combination. When you talk about the machine takes a decision, for me, I would say if a machine proposes more different options to then take a human decision, that would be my level of AI, where I would be happy to achieve it in the end, only as a reaction on what you said.
Yeah. Maria Pia?
I will answer with my silly storytelling and sense of humor. Growing up is a biologically inevitable phenomenon, but growing up in maturity is something that is entirely in our hands. So I've chosen to remain immature and childish. And as such, as I said, I love to experiment. So when it comes to AI, I am an early adopter. I have the privilege of working in an organization that has embraced digital with some very advanced digital tools. And we have our Chief Digital Officer, Pierre-Yves Calloc, that is extremely creative. So what we have done with him, we have organized workshops in town halls where we are actually teaching AI to the team. We are explaining what are the tools that the company make available. We are explaining them the do's and don'ts. We have launched a challenge on generating ideas, business cases for AI that we'll submit into a company committee to identify the best idea and push them in parallel with the bigger, broader, more structured digital transformation. And I think role modeling is essential as everything, because if we as leaders, if I am passionate about safety, if I'm passionate about diversity, if I'm passionate about competence, if I'm passionate about AI, you can bet that the organization will be energized, will be activated. Not everyone will be activated on the same teams, but you will see them literally blossoming up and embracing the challenge. Mm-hmm. So I wish that we could answer on what are the biggest barriers. I've seen the panelist, Maria, cannot answer the question, but I would say it's not necessarily the biggest barrier to digital transformation, but definitely the biggest enabler to transformation. I like to see it in positive, is the C-suite, is the leadership behavior and the role modeling of every individual in the enterprise.
Yeah. There are a bunch of questions that we've had from the audience. So let's start it to get one. I like this one, which is machines make decisions all the time. They're called control systems. This is Charlie. Let the machines take the small decisions and provide better analysis and data to let the humans take the big decision. Now, here's the question for you all. What is a small decision and what's a big decision?
I don't mind starting with that one.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, it's a great question, Charlie. And I was thinking about it. I read it just a minute ago and I was thinking, I can give an example of how we're looking at that at Rolls-Royce at the moment. So we are looking at we're playing with some AI that does some negotiation. So in terms of what's a small decision, what's a big decision, we're overlapping AI where we either don't negotiate because we just don't have enough resource right now because the value is so small, or whether the volume is, there's a lot of volume, but it's totally different stuff. So it's just not, the value isn't there for us to put buyers on it and get into, strategic negotiations. So for us, we're looking at value as a starting point for where AI can make a decision. And I guess we'll reach a limit where we say, actually, from here, this value onwards, it's a person. However, what I fully do expect is that we'll get better and better at using the AI, and we'll change that value as we go. But that's just one example of how you can differentiate between a small decision and a big decision. We're looking at value to start with.
That is perfect. Thank you. Anybody else want to take a guess at this question or take a shot at it?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So first off, love the question, right? So I think there are a couple of ways to look at it. At the outset, what are the top 10, 50, 100 decisions that I'm taking in my supply chain, which really account for the maximum from a turnover or a revenue impact? What are those decisions I want to automate, right? So that really helps you ascertain what is the kind of value and where do you want to play in terms of automating your decisions. That's one. Second is in terms of example, I think, I really like the example, Sarah, that you gave in terms of value. So when you look at decisions, you look at the perspective of value, frequency of those decisions, how frequently are you taking it, the accuracy of those decisions, the granularity at which you want to take those decisions, what is the kind of coverage that you really want to have. So there was this one organization that was looking at automating all their decisions on safety stock for A class, B class, and C class SKUs. What they said was A class SKUs, they would like the supply chain planning team to go into the system, look at the recommendation that is getting proposed, and they would like to take the decision by accepting the recommendation. But for C class SKUs, which were thousands of them, they didn't really have the time to get through to it. So they said anything below a particular threshold value in terms of impact, they would prefer the machine to take the decision for them. Right, so this is really kind of how you achieve that balance between a big decision and a small decision, and value is a pretty big parameter to look at.
That's a great answer. Maria Pia, did you want to say something?
Just one, I'm not sure I would do the distinction between small and big decisions. My brain doesn't work that way. The way I look at augmented reality or control systems or anything that is machine aided are insights. So, and I see a difference between the old control systems, if you like. So I'm a human, I actually programming in, and I expect repetitive and reliable outcome. The way I look at some of the recent developments, via IRA or via any other decisions or any other tools that are available in the market or developed in-house, or even if I look at some of the analytical tools that are available when we analyze problems. Archana was talking about sustainability improvements. I mean, I have AI projects in Pernod Ricard that are looking at terroir. I'm collecting millions and millions of data, and out of this data, I will get my insight. I generally look at those things, at those processes and those improvements as augmented insights. At the end of the chain, there is always a man or a woman that will give this insight a body, and that will transform the insights into a business decision. But I wouldn't say big or small. So I'm using AI or very advanced, sophisticated tools to take very big decisions that will have a material impact on the results of the company. But I'm also using them on many small things. I mean, I'm using AI to write job descriptions because it does it faster. If I need to give an interview, sometimes I ask AI to help me write it, or if I need to quickly translate something. So I can use it in the small and the big. What is important is that, like we've been saying a few times in this podcast, is what is guiding us, what is the value that we need to unlock, and what is the best way to get the value out. There is actually, Maria, if I may jump ahead, there is a question that I raise my hand for, that is this turning us into an hamster wheel, which it is
Oh yeah,
very,
the question about burnout as well,
yes,
which is I think an important one, right?
I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
go for it, please.
I find it very important and very connected to this point of small and big. The point is not to take more decisions. It's not about the millions decisions we are not making. The point is, have I chosen the right decisions? Am I augmenting my capacity to take the right decisions? Because the rest of the time I free up. I don't necessarily want to invest in more activity. I made a post recently, Maria. I don't know if you had a chance to see it on the Latin concept of otium, of idleness,
Yeah.
of the Italian dolce far niente. And this means that creativity, humanity, insights are generated when the mind is free to roam. Now, AI gives us this unique gift, or processes give us the unique gift of augmenting our potential. How we reinvest in other things, it's our choice. The human must always be in control of our destiny.
Yeah. I mean, and to use the example, I mean, think about it. If you go back 100 years, right, we didn't have forklifts, we didn't have lots of other types of, conveyor belts in factories. And so they didn't necessarily, although the expectation was higher that you had to move more pallets, right, per hour, it didn't create burnout per se. So I think technology should be an enabler for us to spend our time in the areas that really add value. So, so yeah, I like that question. Did you want to say something, Archana?
Yeah, so I really like the point, Maria, that you made on taking the right decision, right? So I think there's an element to it to understand how do you know the decisions you've taken? Were they good decisions or bad decisions? Did they lead to the right kind of outcomes? Do we need to go back and revisit the process for decision making? So how do you learn from the decisions that you're making? How do you use reinforcement learning? So really moving from a point where we're using control rooms to look at data to really having control rooms to look at what are the decisions that have been taken in the enterprise, and are we really getting the impact that we intended to, or do we need to go back and revisit any of it so that we can repivot if we need to? I think to me that's the other kind of angle to this as well when it comes to the right decisions and good quality decisions.
And you know what? There's a question here that Boris asks, which kind of speaks to people's cynicism, perhaps, or skepticism around AI and technology. I'm going to read out his question, which is, what type of decisions have you allowed technology and AI to perform in your supply chain operations without any human intervention? And what strategies did you deploy to empower people to trust technology and AI-driven recommendations and decisions? This is a, speaks fundamentally to the skepticism that we talked about earlier with change management, right, Gundul, about making sure that people trust the technology that you bring forward. Gundul, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there are two different angles. On the one side, it's all about to convince and to prove what AI can do better. And what we did here, we used historical data to make a simulation of a plan and demonstrated then that the prediction of the AI was far better than the manual bottom-up process we did from a human perspective. That was the first thing. The other thing is what we now do, we are very careful in stepping up using AI, but it's about the plan now to distinguish in demand planning between doing a demand segmentation and use AI not for the seasonal new products, because here nobody would trust, because the human always knows better what. I'm now blinking because it's still something where I trust AI could even do that, but it's about the people to learn that AI can do a lot more than they today think. And if you think about all the carryover products, what you have over seasons, your key franchise products, those you can really use AI for, and people will immediately see, okay, I don't have to touch them anymore. And therefore you have already made your win points.
Yeah. Maria Pia, you wanted to say something?
I had a recent conversation. So the same person I had the conversation on otium, on the idleness, was an amazing Italian entrepreneur that actually told me that the way is developing very advanced automotive innovation for race cars is through AI. His view was that AI would actually allow him to accelerate the rate of innovation and to accelerate the rate of failure, and to the point that we made earlier around failure. He said, physical failure can be very expensive. Digital failure doesn't cost me anything. So what it does when it develops innovation, it creates digital twins of the components or the solutions it's designing for customers, and it tests them, and he has them used by the final user. Now, of course, to do that, it needs to have a very high degree and confidence that the digital twin is reliable, and that goes as a credit to the intelligence of his engineers and programmers and data scientists. But imagine the beauty of not having to build 15, 20, 30 prototypes at high expense and great frustration of people, but having to build one, the final, that is perfect and is designed for the end user. Now, I found that insight incredibly inspiring. In many cases, we are far away from that. But I think if we keep the compass, that at the end, technology is something that we either design or that we train. So when you think about machine learning, it's something that we train and we build the intelligence of. So if we build that intelligence and we build that confidence to the point of Gundam, there is no reason why we shouldn't let them take certain decisions or to run certain simulations. We will then add the intelligence to validate that those are correct and revalidate. But I don't think there is any more reason to be worried than the trust that we all put in our ABS in the car. I mean, when I brake, and I brake abruptly, I know the ABS will intervene and keep me safe. I don't actually go back and re-challenge.
You know, Maria Pia, that's a great example and one I use regularly, because I get asked the question quite a lot about what kind of skill sets will the supply chain executive or supply chain leader of the future need? And there's this sort of erroneous belief, in my opinion, that you're going to need to be extremely digitally savvy and extremely tech savvy and know how to code in Python, et cetera. And I think although being digitally aware and very digitally savvy are important skills, I don't look at my car and know the inner workings of how, you know, the brakes work. I just know that I press a button and it starts every morning and I know how to utilize it, right? I mean, I know if it breaks down what to do, but my point is that I think technology is advancing at such a fast pace, and AI and all the machine learning and everything that's happening at a fast pace, that we won't need to look under the hood to play with the wires. We will just know that it's there, that we can trust it, and that we can move on with it and actually use it to the best of our abilities to implement change, to a point that Archana made at the beginning of this session, which is the exciting part of supply chain is the innovation we can drive, the problem solving that we can drive. And if technology helps us do that, then all the better for that, right? I want to get to the polls first. I know we have some other questions. We're running out of time, but we ran a poll. I'd like to see what the answers look like. There we have it. So the biggest barriers to supply chain, to digital transformation supply chain, knowledge. That's an interesting one. Knowledge of how we can utilize this better. What stage of digital transformation are you in? Okay, we've got a lot of early adopters, which I think is similar to the panel as well. And who is your biggest advocate for transformation? The senior leadership. That's an interesting one. And then last one, why are you embarking on or considering embarking on digital transformations? All of the above, to improve efficiency, reduce costs, because everyone else is, to build resilience. So I'm going to ask the panelists what your thoughts are on some of these questions. Anybody want to address this? Sarah, you seem to be nodding along. Do you have any thoughts on these questions?
Yeah, I was looking at the first one actually. What's the biggest barriers to digital transformation in your supply chain? And knowledge is an interesting one. And I was wondering whether so many people have scored that, because I think there's 2 points for me. One is, where do you start? So there is so much digital tools, AI options around. It's kind of, what do you choose? Where should you even start? So I think, you know, there is a bit of a question that you need to take first internally around what are the problems you're trying to solve. and then create a plan around that. Otherwise, you could just go from one really cool tool to another and just flit around and never actually make anything stick. So I think that's the first thing around knowledge that I would say is work out the problems you're trying to solve and then understand what the solutions are for that specific problem. The other thing around knowledge, which I know applies to us at Rolls-Royce, is we are so busy firefighting with the volatile supply chain that we're all dealing with right now, that we are not scanning the market to see what's going to be next, what's our next problem and how is that going to impact us. So I would touch on knowledge there as well. And one of the things we're going to look at is using AI to scan the market and really understand what's going on and where will it impact us, either as an opportunity that we need to go and take advantage of, or as a risk that we are not thinking about today that we need to go and do something about. And that's the knowledge that we are all conscious that we need to go and find, but no one's really, we're just firefighting, we're reacting. There's a lot going on that we need to get better at, and getting that knowledge and forward thinking and preempting stuff is definitely an improvement journey that we need to go on. So I think there's a couple of areas I would touch on with knowledge, that first question.
That makes a lot of sense. Anybody else want to talk? I agree with you. I think there's so much content out there, so much noise out there around digital transformation. I also I loved your point there about we're busy firefighting, and that was going to be my next question. We can't neglect the fact that the world is almost quite literally on fire. There are a lot of things going on hitting us all at once. There was a question here alluding to shipping challenges, and we've got climate issues, we've got economic issues, geopolitical issues. So how do organizations plan to innovate, plan to deal with digital transformation, keep up with the pace of technological change, and firefight and deal with the day-to-day? So Maria P., I want to talk to you about that. How do you handle all of that? How do you deal with transformation and all the things that are happening in the world? And what practical advice would you give to people?
The way I handle them is I walk the dog every Saturday, every Sunday when I go back home, and I immerse myself in nature and try to reflect. No, it's a big question, the one you are asking. I think it's trying to remain human, setting priorities, and recognizing that we are finite as beings. On the point of knowledge that Sarah was commenting on earlier, I often say that the skills of tomorrow don't exist yet. We don't necessarily teach them at university. We have never seen them before. And I think if we are all humble on the point that those skills do not exist, it's true for AI, but it's equally true for the ones of you that run European companies. There is the Green Directive, the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Directive, which is completely new. It's also demanding new skills, new competencies and stuff. Once you know you don't know, like what Socrates was telling us, you are at ease with your not knowing. I mean, the only thing we can do is to move forward and learn. I think what is very important is to realize that as knowledge is to be created, we need to make sure that we don't replicate biases that exist in the current society, that we don't teach it wrong, because at the end the tools are designed by humans for humans. So our limitedness will go in the tools as well. Something that struck me in the list, I was quickly trying to go through and absorb the questions and answers, is that I'm very pleased to see that there is a strong enthusiasm and advocacy from senior leadership, which is pretty amazing. But it's equally worrying that the supervisors seem not to be as engaged, which might create a strange sandwich situation between people that see the value because it would simplify their life, top management that is engaged, but then a silly situation in between. I don't know if...
But doesn't that speak to the question that I was asking, which is the supervisors are in the thick of the day-to-day firefighting. So perhaps maybe that's where the challenge lies, is in trying to firefight and solve day-to-day problems, but also have an open mind to innovation and to, problem solving that are perhaps maybe more strategic and long-term.
Indeed. So how do we raise ourselves? And I think the role of leaders, to to your question, Maria, is we need to remain very grounded in reality. It's one of the values in our company. So it's good to have passion for challenge, but if we are not grounded in reality, if we don't understand what is the pace of change that the organization can take, if we don't understand what are the skills we need to inject or the competencies we need to inject, how do we create excitement around the themes that we think are more breakthrough, then the organization won't follow. And then it will.
Well, it goes, if we're going to go full circle to where we started, which is the point that Sarah made, the point that Gundel made, that we've all made, which is, what problem are we trying to solve? How is this going to help my people, my company, you know, my suppliers, my partners, right? My employees, and not follow the shiny new object syndrome, which is to just implement technology for the sake of technology. There are a lot of people here that are still skeptical about AI and technology, but we know the value that it can bring so long as we're solving a problem that actually exists. Now, we've got a few minutes, only 5 minutes left, so I want to maybe just finish this up with getting some practical guidelines or practical advice to people that are watching this webinar who want to understand a little bit more about, because they're early adopters in the digital transformation space. What advice would you give to them? Archana, let's start with you.
So a couple of things. You would want to start small. You would want to speak about your wins, really build on the momentum of those wins. So how do you really showcase that you are delivering tangible value, I think, through essentially what you're building? That's one. The other thing to really keep in mind is, how do you really achieve that right balance between global and local, right? So essentially, if I look at it and if I take an analogy, right, when we talk about manufacturing cars, you have a chassis that gets created. And then it really depends upon the end, buyer, which color paint you want to go in for, what kind of tires do you want to go in for. So really, how do you incorporate those global frameworks, but then also allow each of your markets to then bring in that level of local nuances. So then what you really have is not just a technology solution, but what you really have is something which is embedded, in terms of what people can use as well. So I think those are the couple of things I would probably want to leave the audience with. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Gundel?
Yeah, I really loved the speech from Archana. Therefore, she brought everything up already. But what I would like to add is there is not one recipe. Each of us need to really make a deep dive into where we are today and where are our pain points and where to go for tomorrow. It's very dependent also on the growth plans. It's very important on how our distribution is. Is it global? Is it only one market? Therefore, the complexity of the different supply chains are super relevant to start with, and then to diagnose and to understand where we really have to start. And I like this, make it piece by piece. It's really about persuading boys quick wins to get the audience behind, to get really this kind of spirit of making a change, going the transformation together. And I leave that now that the others also have some minutes to talk.
Maria Pia.
Listen, it's a genuine pleasure to be with you, Maria, today to discuss these incredible topics. I was very, very, very impressed to see the level of engagement of our friends on the panel and the quality of the questions on the team. I think we need to role model, test, learn, fail faster, learn fast. That's it.
Agree. Sarah, we'll leave the final thoughts with you, no pressure. But what advice would you give? What would you say to people that are watching this right now?
I think a couple of things. So one is put some resource behind it. So the role I've just got is purely focused on transformation and change. It's not on top of my day job. That helps. And the other thing is just don't give up. It's not easy. You have to have a lot of energy and a lot of determination. You can fail, but don't give up.
Yeah, and to Maria Pia's point, if you're going to fail fast. I think that's something that is a vital thing. It's not going to be easy sailing. There are going to be challenges. There are a lot of people to support. There's a lot of knowledge out there. So, you can reach out to the panelists, reach out to people like Archana, who works at a very fantastic organization that helps companies do this. You can reach out to me. I've got lots of content on this topic, to the people at Reuters Events. So, you know what? just continue to learn, unlearn, and drive the change that you want to see in the supply chain industry. I think that that's going to be the most fantastic. We work in the most fantastic industry, and I think it's great that you all participated here. So I want to thank you all. Thank the panelists, first of all, for being here, for answering our questions. Thank you to the attendees who asked a lot of questions, which is what I love to see. And thank you to Reuters Events for hosting this event. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.